The military network that quietly became the internet. The internet didn't start with search engines or social networks. It didn't begin with communication in mind at all. It began as an answer to a question the American military didn't want to face. What happens when the bombs fall? Today, the internet feels personal. We check email over breakfast. We browse news from our phones. We stream entertainment, manage finances, and stay in touch with family across continents. It's woven into the fabric of everyday life. It's hard to imagine it as anything other than a civilian tool built for us, by us. But that feeling is a historical illusion. In the 1960s, the United States government had a problem. The Cold War wasn't just a political standoff. It was an existential threat. The Soviet Union had missiles aimed at American cities. The possibility of nuclear war was not abstract. It was planned for. And in that planning, a troubling reality emerged. The nation's communication infrastructure was fragile. Phone lines ran through central hubs. Military command systems relied on fixed locations. A single strike could sever contact between leaders, between bases, between the forces meant to respond. Centralized networks were efficient in peacetime. In wartime, they were a fatal vulnerability. The Department of Defense needed something different. Not faster communication, not cheaper communication, survivable communication. A network that could route messages even if parts of it were destroyed. A system with no single point of failure. This was not a problem the private sector was trying to solve. This was a problem only the government had the resources and the urgency to address. In 1958, the Advanced Research Projects Agency was created. ARPA, as it was known, had a simple mission: fund the kind of research no one else would. The kind that seemed speculative, impractical, or too far ahead of its time. Its job was to keep America technologically superior, especially in areas the Soviets might exploit. ARPA didn't build weapons directly. It built the ideas that would later become weapons, or infrastructure, or entirely new fields of science. One of those ideas was a decentralized computer network. Instead of relying on a single hub, messages would travel along multiple possible paths. If one route was destroyed, the system would adapt. Information would survive. In 1969, ARPANET went live. It connected 4 computers at 4 universities: UCLA, Stanford, UC Santa Barbara, and the University of Utah. But this was not a gift to academia. It was a military research project. The universities were chosen because they had the technical expertise to develop the system, not because the public needed access to it. ARPANET was funded entirely by the Department of Defense. Its purpose was strategic. It was designed to test whether a resilient, distributed network could actually function. Comfort, convenience, and public use were never part of the equation. The network was restricted. Access required security clearance or direct involvement in defense-funded research. For years, most Americans had no idea it existed, and those who did would not have recognized it as the foundation of anything familiar. It was slow. It was expensive. It was experimental. Civilians were not the intended beneficiaries, and they were not invited. But ARPANET did something remarkable. It worked. Slowly, quietly. It expanded. More universities were connected. More research institutions joined. Protocols were developed to standardize how machines talk to each other. Engineers refined the technology, not for profit, but because the government kept funding it. The network grew, not through market demand, but through strategic necessity. Few people outside the defense and academic communities paid attention. There were no headlines, no public announcements, just steady, methodical progress in the background of American life. Then something shifted. By the early 1980s, the military portions of ARPANET were separated into their own secure network. What remained became more academic, more open. New communication protocols made it easier for different types of computers to connect. Universities began using the network, not just for defense research, but for their own projects. Gradually, access widened. The walls came down. What had been a restricted military tool became the backbone of a new kind of infrastructure. The transition wasn't sudden. It wasn't planned as a public gift. It simply became more useful to more people, and the government allowed it to evolve. By the time the general public began to access what we now call the internet, its origins had faded into obscurity. The network had been repurposed, rebranded, and absorbed into civilian life. But the architecture remained. The design principles born out of Cold War paranoia, decentralization, redundancy, adaptability, became the invisible foundation of global communication. Every email sent, every transaction processed, every piece of information shared across continents moves through a system designed to survive nuclear war. We live in a world that runs on that foundation. Commerce depends on it. Governments depend on it. Our sense of time, coordination, and connection depends on it. Yet most people have never stopped to ask where it came from, or why it was built the way it was. The internet feels like it was made for us. In truth, it was made for a war that never came. This is not unique. Many of the tools that define modern civilian life were born in military laboratories, funded by defense budgets, created to solve problems most of us will never face. The internet is simply the most successful example. It began as a network designed to endure the unthinkable. It became the thing we cannot imagine living without. The internet didn't just connect the world. It was designed to survive the end of it.